Some of the most powerful stories aren't about famous presidents or movie stars. They're about regular people, folks whose lives tell us something bigger about the world they lived in. And today, we're going to dive into one of those lives, the story of a man named Frederick Walton Seaver Jr. It's a huge question, right? One we all probably think about. What does it actually mean to live a fulfilling life? Is it about money or success, or is it something else entirely? We're going to explore that idea through the lens of one man's incredible journey. The man we're talking about is Frederick Walton Seaver Jr., or Fred, as everyone knew him. His life is like a perfect snapshot of 20th century America. He lived through the Great Depression, he served in World War II, and he was part of that huge post-war boom. His story is America's story. So here's how we'll walk through it. We'll start with his childhood in Massachusetts, follow him on a wild cross-country trip, and see how he built a brand new life and a lasting legacy out in California. Let's get into it. Okay, so our story kicks off in the industrial heart of New England. This is where Fred's life started out with so much promise, before he ran into some serious roadblocks. So Fred was born back in 1911 and grew up in a busy little mill town called Leominster, Massachusetts. He was one of 7 kids, so it was a full house. His dad was a superintendent at a local company, and they were a solid working-class family. They even owned their own home, which back in 1930 was a huge piece of the American dream. It really meant you were stable. And this right here, this is where Fred's life took a massive turn. On one side, you have the promise. He was a star athlete, earned a football scholarship to Dartmouth, an Ivy League school. His future looked absolutely golden. But then, reality crashed down. Hard. A football injury ended his career, his family hit financial trouble, and then the Great Depression swept across the country. Just like that, he had to leave college with no degree and no clear path forward. Everything he'd been working for just vanished. So, facing all that disappointment, Fred was at a major crossroads. And in 1940, he made a snap decision that would change absolutely everything. Picture this. He's 28 years old, his athletic dreams are toast, and he's just gone through a painful breakup. He was probably feeling pretty lost, so he decided to do something drastic. He needed a clean break, a fresh start, a chance to become someone new. And he didn't waste any time. He hopped in his car and drove, all the way from Massachusetts to San Diego, California. And get this, he did it in only 3 days. In 1940. This was before the interstate highway system we have now. He was on those classic winding roads like Route 66. He literally drove across a continent, pulled up to his cousin's house, and left his old life in the rearview mirror for good. And out there in sunny California, he started over. He began to build a new life, a life that would be defined by love, by duty during the war, and eventually a steady, stable career. You gotta love this story. So one night, Fred's sitting at the dinner table with his relatives, and he just announces, "I need a girl." His little 14-year-old cousin Marcia doesn't miss a beat and says, "I know one." She was talking about her art teacher, a woman named Betty Virginia Carringer. Well, Marcia set them up, and they hit it off right away. And their life took off like a rocket, all while World War II was raging. They got married in 1942. A year later, their first son, Randy, was born while Fred was working at a defense plant. Then, in 44, he enlisted in the Navy and served up in the Gulf of Alaska. He finally came home to his family in 1946. What an intense way to start a marriage and a family. So after the war, Fred found the stability he'd been looking for. He became a life insurance agent with Prudential and stayed with them for 25 years. It was the perfect job for him. He was a real people person, and it gave him the solid foundation he needed to raise his family. And this right here, this is the real core of his story. Because while his job paid the bills, it was his role as a dad, a baseball coach, and a guy who showed up for his community that truly defined who he was. The Seaver house was always buzzing with energy. They ended up having 3 sons, and life was all about sports. Their brick backyard was famous in the neighborhood. They called it the world's greatest wiffle ball court. And Fred started this amazing tradition. Every Saturday morning, he'd bring home donuts and eclairs for the boys after his Friday night bowling league. But it was on the baseball field where Fred really found his calling. For more than 15 years, he coached his sons' teams, from Little League all the way up. This wasn't just something he did on the side. It was a deep, meaningful commitment to the kids in his community. He was Coach Seaver. And this chart, wow, it really puts his life into perspective. Just look at these numbers: a 25-year career, over 15 years of coaching, and an incredible 41-year marriage to Betty. This shows you what he was all about: steadfast, long-term dedication to the things that mattered. So, what brought him joy? It was pretty simple, really. It was family, first and foremost. It was coaching baseball. It was his bowling league, cheering on the local Padres and Chargers, and just spending time in his garden. These were the things that really filled his cup. So when you add all that up, the family, the coaching, the simple joys, you start to see the shape of the legacy he was building. It wasn't going to be about fame or money, but something way more personal. And one of the best parts for Fred was getting to see his family grow. All three of his sons got married, and he became a doting grandfather to 4 granddaughters. He even passed on his love of the game, encouraging his oldest granddaughter, Lori, to play softball. Fred retired in 1971, and he really enjoyed his time working around the house and in his garden. He passed away in 1983 after a battle with cancer, and his final resting place is just beautiful: Fort Rosecrans National Cemetery, on a hill overlooking San Diego, the city he adopted and loved for more than 40 years. So that brings us back to this idea of a legacy. What does it even mean? It's what you pass on, right? What you leave behind. For Fred, it was never going to be a building with his name on it or a pile of money. Now, his legacy was much simpler and maybe way more important. It was the encouragement he gave to his kids, the love for sports he shared with dozens of young players, and yeah, the simple, happy memory of those Saturday morning donuts. It was a legacy of just being there, of being dedicated, of love. And so that brings us right back to the question we started with: what defines a fulfilling life? Fred Seaver's story suggests that it's not always about the big, flashy achievements. It's often about the quiet, steady impact you have on the people right in front of you. It makes you think, doesn't it? When it's all said and done, how will your story be told? What will be the small, meaningful details that define your legacy?